Good afternoon. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mention will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicago.gov/business licensing. The BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program now has a new portal, and getting your certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Register for the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program. 2. Attend 6 free BACP webinars from listed categories and receive credit after each. 3. Graduate from the program and receive your certificate. Graduating from the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program makes you eligible to apply for a CIBC Bank USA's Entrepreneurial Loan Program. For full program details, visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. For webinar calendar, please visit chicago.gov/BACP webinars. If you are already a part of the program, your account will automatically reflect the credit for joining this webinar within 24 hours. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar will be Forming Your Business, Choosing Your Legal Entity, and Risk Mitigation, presented by Agostino Filippone, partner at Chokshi Filippone Law, LLC. Augie?
Hey, thanks, Geraldine, and thanks for everyone for taking time out of your day and taking part in this webinar. Appreciate, again, the opportunity from the BACP and Geraldine for inviting me over. Let's get right into it. Looking to do the presentation and then certainly have some time for questions afterwards. And, hopefully you find this informative. And I will say, first and foremost, the fact that you're taking part in this webinar and the fact that you're going out there and you're searching for new information and experience and knowledge is already a great step. A lot of people, they like to talk about what they're going to do and never take any steps to actually doing it. So the fact that you're part of this conversation and learning and interacting with the BACP, which is a great resource, and they have a lot of different areas and connections that they can put you in touch with is always a great step. So there's my little disclaimer, not legal advice or attorney-client relationship. I always need to be careful, but I do try and be as candid and genuine with people as possible because I think that's only fair and that's frankly right, and that's what we should have to have that conversation and to present some, a lot of times, common sense stuff, and people kind of, sometimes I think for especially new entrepreneurs or people that are looking to start their business, it's good to have that network of people that are supportive and that you can kind of bounce ideas off of or get a second opinion from if you don't have that in your family already, with other family members or friends that have these businesses. So that's another great resource that the BACP and all these groups kind of offer, is you're able to start making those connections and network so that you can get genuine relationships and build up the positive connections that are going to help you, not just when you're starting out, but also down the road. So just a little slide about our firm and kind of setting the table and trying to say, like, all right, why should I bother listening to this guy? It's we're a law firm. Myself and my wife, we actually started out together, and she handles a lot of the immigration and real estate and estate planning. I do a lot of the business and civil litigation matters. So when we talk about small business, I mean, we're putting all our baskets, all our cookies in the same baskets. All right. Oh, my apologies. I'll saw some Q&A, but I'll go to those afterwards. The one thing that's really different about us, we've realized, especially when working with small business clients, offering fixed fee and limited scope representation, which is kind of like a la carte law, because we realized a lot of times when you're starting out, money's tight. You got to focus on what you can do. And a lot of people, they don't need an attorney for necessarily everything. They just need them for maybe contract reviews or leases or working out kind of with the business formation and things like that. And so we like to just tell people, look, tell us what you need us for, and we can assist you in those areas. And then the other things, you're perfectly capable of doing them. It's going to be a lot more cost effective. Or you may want to consider your bench of other players, like an insurance professional or a banker or an someone else that has that area of expertise, which you're going to need for your business, depending on what it is. We do have offices downtown as well as a suburban in Mount Prospect. City people don't like to go into the burbs, and burb people don't like to go into the cities. So we just offer both. In terms of myself personally, I'm just the quintessential lifetime student. Love learning from people. Love learning about different things. So that's why I have what I have, and we're heavily involved in the community. Again, I've found that so long as you're involved and it's a genuine commitment, and it's not just that you're trying to kind of put a face out there, people realize that. And slowly but surely, it's also developed into relationships that we've been able to rely on, not just for professionally, but personally as well, out there. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in my time running the business and working with small business owners is really, you need to have a genuine face out there. We can all smell someone that's just looking for something or making a quick buck or something else like that. And so the biggest thing that I tell people is just be genuine. Not everyone is going to be who you need or what you need. You're not going to be a one size fits all for everyone either. So when you're going out there presenting or selling your product or your service, you need to consider that. How would that impact you if you had someone come in, door to door? What problem are you solving, and how can you do that genuinely so that someone doesn't feel like they're just a number on a wall, or on your tally for the month, and that it's going to be something that's going to be a relationship that's going to be beneficial. It's going to be a value add, and that you're going to solve a problem that they have for whatever that might be. And yes, I am the treasurer for the Mount Prospect Women's Club. Great group of ladies. They keep me honest and they keep me on my toes. So I always appreciate that. Honest criticism, never a bad thing, and a little humility. Basic topic outline. Let's do some, we'll get some slides on business plan and strategy, kind of high level things. Entity selection and formation, kind of nitty gritty, really when you're ready to move forward with your actual business and you're talking about some legal implications. That's usually the part where people go talk to an attorney and kind of see what their options are. And at the end of the day, any entity that you decide, big thing is you're trying to separate your professional assets from your personal assets, and you're trying to just create this wall of separation, which is the limited liability protection, so that if something does happen to your business, it doesn't come and impact your personal goods or your house or personal accounts or things like that. I'll also go through some best practices. Again, a lot of common sense stuff at the end of the day. I think people kind of often discount their gut, and that's not a good thing. It's good to double check things, but at the end of the day, you also need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I know it's a little bit of cliche. I might use some other cliches down the road too, but that really is what it is. Because especially when you're working out or when you're starting out, especially working for yourself, it's kind of scary. We're a little bit of a select group, and that's why that support group is important. But it's all on your own. So if you're not going to do it, if you're not cleaning the bathrooms, they're not getting cleaned. And when you're just starting out, it's hard to kind of specifically kind of push for more employees or other people to do the job, because it's always a mouth in front of yours that you have to feed when you take on that responsibility. And so a lot of times that's why people start out just as solopreneurs, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a proof of concept. Do it smart, take small risks. and build something, and build that into something bigger. Once you have the foundation, it's a good place to start building up. You always need that strong foundation. If you don't have that, doesn't matter how big you get, you might be able to get away with it for a while, but eventually it does come down and catch up to you. And then just some quick tips on kind of protecting your business and things to look out for, so that you can kind of determine what's best for you and your family and your business. All right, so I call this like a little mini MBA for anyone that's looked at any books or gone to school or what have you. These are some of the big things that you'll look at for any kind of strategy or course in business school, and especially marketing. SWOT analysis, that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's a great way to kind of analyze where you're coming from, what you're bringing to the table, what your business is bringing to the table. Porter's 5 Forces is a great one for like a marketing mix to determine what you're going to do when you're proof of concept. 5P marketing mix on that as well, and then your business plan, which is good to have. It's going to change, especially when you're just starting out. I will caution you there. It's going to change probably monthly or even sooner than that. Because different things change, you learn different things, you realize certain ideas that you thought were going to work are now working. But again, be comfortable with that change. Also, if you're looking to have any kind of bank, like a loan, a line of credit, or anything else like that, they're going to want to see some kind of business plan to kind of figure out what your numbers are, what your projections are, what you're doing, what makes you a credible client at the end of the day. Because again, banks are there to give you a service and to assist you in your growth, but they're doing it for a fee. So they want to know that there's some security in what you're providing, that you're able to pay back the loan with whatever the interest is. So credit and debt are a great tool, but just like anything else, you need to use them responsibly, or you're going to have problems down the road, probably quicker than later. So SWOT analysis, again, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You'll see there's kind of external and internal that you're looking at, because you're looking at kind of external things like other your competitive set, right? Who else is, if you're opening up a flower shop, and you're thinking about opening up a flower shop, and wherever it might be, who else in your neighborhood? Oh, my apologies. Who else in your neighborhood has a flower shop? Like what is it? Are there any alternatives to the flower shop as well that people might have, candy stores or other gifts or tchotchkes or things like that? Weaknesses on the external and internal side, what are you going to do to differentiate yourself? Really, with any business or service, attorneys, they can be a dime a dozen. So it's kind of like, all right, what makes you special? What makes you specific? And so you might see attorneys go into like a really niche area. I've seen people with that deal solely for like cellular antennas and utilities and things like that. And so they become just the known professional in that area. And they have enough people that provide these services that, they search out for this one person because they're so select in their knowledge. And it's a really, really niche area, but so long as you know your stuff and you got your client base, it works out. It's not always about quantity. Sometimes it's just about quality as well. Or if you got a specific area that you want to work with, and you get really involved in the chamber for whatever that community is, and you kind of become the go-to person in that community, and you're known as the person for whatever that service is, and you're a part of that community. That's a great way to kind of build relationships as well. Strengths, kind of, what is your core competency? What are you doing? I know when you're just starting out, I could feel like you're responsible for everything, and you are to an extent. I like to say just kind of, you have to be a jack of all trades, because you need to know a little bit about everything, so that if you're going down a wrong path, at least. And by that I mean, you can't just trust. I stink at accounting, and so you might go get an accountant, but you still need to know enough to watch over your books and see, this doesn't look right, or this doesn't feel like it should be here, and ask the right questions so that you can kind of ferret out if that person's trying to do some damage to you. Not necessarily anything illegal, but maybe they're not working in your best interest. And so you need to be cognizant of that and realize that, so that you know what you're responsible for, what you're doing, and to make sure that your business and your growth are protected as well. The opportunities, like what are the opportunities in your market? And when you're just starting out, what chances are there for you to expand? Depending on what your product is, it may grow into something else. I know Happy Baby was one of them. They started out with just the packaged foods, and then they started growing into a different line of packaged foods. I got pretty young kids, so I still remember buying all this stuff. But and then they started going into other like young child things, and then they started seeing, okay, well, we got these kids and these families that were in the pipeline when they were really young. Maybe we should go into more young child foods, so something more than just mush, and kind of promoting our brand and the people that trust us with our food and what we're providing to their family, to kind of have another sale point and another SKU, another unit that we can sell to other people. And you see that all the time with a lot of different products where they kind of expand. Sometimes it feels forced, sometimes it feels natural. I saw this recently with Yeti. Like, they used to be, now they're not cool anymore. Now it's like the Stanley Cups are the big thing, right? But like Yeti was before that, but they used to just have, the insulated cups, and that was it. And then all of a sudden they were like, all right, we need new products because we've maxed out on these insulated cups. And so now we're going to lunch boxes, we're going to coolers, we're going to cooler bags, we're going to all this other stuff. And now they have this entire line. And it's kind of funny, and that's another thing to keep in mind. Even these major brands, like, they have these life cycles. I still remember the old Nalgene bottles. I still got my old one from college, and that was what it was at the time. So things have like I had someone tell me it was like an emotional component. Any product has an emotional component, a practical component, and then a social component as well. And I often think about that and how that impacts what your product is, how you're looking to develop it, how you're looking to productize it, and then how you maintain it too. And that's a lot of the marketing analysis that you do as well in general, is how do you keep this thing fresh? How do you keep it in front of people's minds? A lot of times you'll see some of these campaign ads and things like that they'll kind of wane off because they're working on their own coattails, and then all of a sudden you'll see this major campaign ad for like Kool-Aid. Now Kool-Aid's back in town and it's cool again, or Jello pudding. Like, all of a sudden, after 10 years of not seeing any commercials, all of a sudden Jello pudding's back in biz, and so that's kind of like the ebb and flow and where you spend your money on that kind of stuff. Five forces, it's a great way to kind of consider ultimately, like, what's your leverage, and what's the leverage of other people over you. Threat of new entry. I always think of a recent example of this is Tesla with full self-driving. I mean, there's a lot of people that they're trying to do it. If anyone knows anyone that's got full self-driving that wants to take a ride or something, it's awesome. I've had some friends that have allowed me the opportunity, and it's getting close. We're gonna get driverless cars pretty soon. But it's the amount of data and the amount of compute and the amount of kind of raw video that it takes in order to train neural nets and other things like that in order to create that kind of system. That's a huge bar. And a lot of times they'll call those moats, just like a moat with the castle with the water around it. Apple's had that with the App Store, where they everyone had to use the App Store in order to get like a certain percentage of money, and then Apple would take like 30% of that. Sometimes you get into trouble with the law and any competitive practices and things like that. But by and large, those are the kinds of things you're looking at in terms of what a new entrant would be. Like, how much money are they going to need to put into this in order to actually be a threat? Breweries and things like that, there's a lot of money up front in terms of the cost for all that equipment and all that machinery, canning lines, inventory, just getting all that stuff space in order to run that, going through the whole regulatory process with whether it's in the city or what have you. So there's a lot of kind of barriers that you potentially could put up where if you're able to do that, not a lot of people are going to be able to do that. So there might not be additional threats. Supplier power, that's important for you to consider, especially if you're working with people that are giving you like raw ingredients and then you're doing something to mix it up and make it into your final product. But I often talk about like gift baskets, right? If you're a gift basket shop and you get raw baskets from someone else, you get plastic, sheeting from someone else, you get salamis and cheeses or whatever else it is. It's kind of like you need to figure out, I might want like 2 basket suppliers, because in case one starts hiking up their prices or one goes out of business, where am I going to get baskets so I can fulfill my orders and make sure that my supply line is running smooth and that I don't have any interruptions because of some outside power on that, and that everything is running clean for me. In terms of buyer power, like how sensitive are your customers and what are they willing to put up with? And what is the cost of changing over different ingredients or things like that. Sometimes you'll often see it where people say like new formula or different ingredients or something like that. Usually it's because you're trying to hit a certain price point and you can't do it with certain ingredients anymore, or you found a cheaper, better way to do it, which is fine so long as the end product doesn't suffer for it. 5P marketing mix. I like this one because it really focuses on what are you pushing? Are you focusing on your product? Are you going to make that the greatest thing possible? And you're going to put all the best things in it and widgets and doohickeys and whatever it is, and people are going to pay a premium for it. Are you going to be a premium brand like Lexus or Mercedes-Benz or something like that? Or are you going to go more on the cheaper level where you product and price? A Hyundai might not be as nice of a fit and finish as a Mercedes-Benz might be, but you're paying a lower price for it, and so you get that trade-off between what people expect for a certain level price, and so promotion too. How are you going to promote this thing? If you're selling hair bands or something like that, you're probably not going to like a trucker rally or something to sell to like a bunch of dudes that are over there. They're not going to buy your hair bands, right? So how are you going to promote it? Do you have certain avenues like do you like a Teen Beat or something like that? I don't even know if Teen Beat's around. I'm showing my age. Teen Bop, I think it was what it was called. But anyway, what magazines are you going to use? A lot of times when you're just starting out, magazines, huge amount of money. It doesn't make sense for someone starting out to spend that amount of money for it. But maybe local ads. If one of your things is you want to, you'll see this with realtors a lot, where nationality sometimes is really important. If you got a Polish speaking realtor, they're really heavy in Polish speaking local newspapers that might be in your community, because they know that people that are buying houses or selling houses that are native speakers, they might only want to work with someone that they can relate to, that they can speak a native tongue with, because it makes things a lot easier for them. So that might be something where you consider that in your marketing mix and what you do. Business planning, rough shot, the biggest parts of it are what I've listed over here, and like I mentioned before when I was talking a little bit about banks and getting a loan and things like that, it's good to have this even if you're not looking for a loan, because it focuses you on what your business is and what it isn't. I think another of the most important things that I often tell people is know when to say no. It's really easy to want to say yes. I know people want to please everyone all the time and do their best. And especially when you're starting out, it's really hard when you get someone through a door that's looking to have something. It's not really your wheelhouse. It's not really what you know, but it's really it's really tempting to take that person's business because it's money. And especially when you're starting out, money's probably gonna be tight. And so it's really hard to kind of go down that road. But then what I've often seen happening is a lot of people, if it's not their wheelhouse, if it's not their competency, and they're kind of stretching themselves, it just ends up ending poorly. You deliver a bad product or service. The person that was going to pay you, maybe they don't pay you, or maybe there's a claim against you, or something else of that sort, and it ends up teaching you a hard lesson. Hopefully you don't fall too hard on it. It's a little risk, not a huge risk, but it doesn't do well for your potential future customer base as well, because you have poor reviews, poor experience. Sometimes it can mentally kind of hurt you in terms of what you think your competency and what your abilities are. And so it never really ends up, even though the initial temptation is there. I always say, look, know what to say yes to and know what to say no to. And so a business plan really focuses you on what kind of customers are you looking for? What kind of business are you looking for? What can you offer that's different than anyone else, and that you're able to deliver in an efficient way so that you are able to have some kind of profit, right? Because that's ultimately what we're living on is the profit. And that profit is a consideration for the expertise or the convenience that you bring to someone's problem in that solution. But it's a great way to focus down everything. Again, it's not going to be get it done and then it's going to stay that way for 10 years. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. There's nothing wrong with that. Times change, people change, supply lines change, markets change. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So in terms of the legalese stuff, you're looking at entity selection and formation. If you go down that road and you start saying, all right, I want to get something more official. I want to get something to protect myself and my assets. These are the basic entities that you'll mainly see. There are some kind of flavors that come off these things, like B Corp's Benefit Corp, which is a kind of a portion of proceeds go towards quality, and good feeling kind of ventures and things of that sort, and community assistance and stuff like that. There are things like NFPs, not-for-profits, things like that. But with entrepreneurship, typically it's people are going toward the profit-seeking motive and not necessarily a not-for-profit. So that's why didn't put it here. But if that's the kind of venture that you're looking for, that's certainly an option. So this is not an exclusive list, but these are the big ones that you're looking at, by and large. Sole prop, that's just a lemonade stand. That's the one where you just create it. It's kind of it's the most exposure that you'll have, because it sounds like a fancy word, sole proprietorship, but really all it is a lemonade stand. Like, that's all you have to think about. It's just, look, you're going out there, you're doing business, you decide to hang your shingle, do something out there, and but all the liabilities on there. So if you sell a cup of lemonade and get someone sick and they end up suing you, they can go after your business assets and your personal assets as well. So there's no kind of level of division there in terms of what your assets are and what people can take. So be careful with that. You may consider doing a DBA filing. It's really simple. DBA is doing business as, just in terms of if you have like a name like Augie's Lemonade or something like that. Partnerships, that's kind of a default, similar to a lemonade stand. Sole prop is just one person. Partnership is two or more people. Whenever you go into business with anyone that's not just you, I always say, like, think about it almost like a marriage, because that's really the kind of effort and commitment that you're making to that other person. A lot of times where I've got clients or people that come up, potential clients that come to me and they got more than one person is together, the initial consultation is almost like a screening of, how's this relationship going to work out? And it's kind of making sure that they're a good fit for each other, because a lot of the stuff that your partner does, they're kind of acting as your agent and as your equal. And so if they go out and you open up a lawnmower business, you're cutting lawns, and you've got your buddy that's going out there and they're making bids for $5 to mow 3 square acres. Guess what? You're the person pays you $5, you're mowing that thing for the day. So it's for that price. It's very difficult, and so there needs to be strong communication, just like a marriage. There really does. The other thing you want to consider whenever you have a partner is you want to have some kind of operating agreement or bylaws. That's what's depending on which entity you have, and if you've got more than one person, that's when you start getting into things like operating agreements and bylaws, which are almost, I like to call them like a prenup for the business and for the partners, because it kind of spells out what the responsibilities and what the obligations of each person are to the business. Sometimes you got partners where they partner up, and one person's the money, and they just say like, look, I trust you. You're great with cars, I'm terrible with cars, but I got money and it's just sitting here. I'll bankroll this thing, but you run the garage. You're great with people. You're great with cars. You do your thing, and then just send me, every month, whatever the profits are, I get half. Or, sometimes if they got the money and they got the leverage, maybe they'll say I get more than half, So that's kind of one of those initial conversations that you have in terms of who's got power and authority, and at what level too. When you have partnerships too, you often want to make limitations on signatures for if you got to make an expense payment that's more than $5,000, $10,000, whatever it might be. That's a good cutoff for your business. That's not going to throttle you so that every day you got to get everyone's signature on everything, so that you can keep moving on with operations. You may want to put just some kind of limit so that if there's a $5,000 payment and that's big for your business, you want all signatures on it, so that everyone knows what's going out the door, and what's coming through, just in case, because you never know. Again, people, partnerships, marriages, business partnerships, they don't always last, and so it's important to kind of do what you can to protect yourself as well and be respectful to your partner. You want to grow something, yes, otherwise you wouldn't have contemplated going into business with them in the first place. But you got to watch out for your own interests as well in that, and be respectful to each other there, just in case. You never know. Again, plan for the worst, hope for the best, or I always say plan for the worst, work for the best, because hope doesn't really do you anything without action, right? Corporations, that's the one you typically hear from. Usually you have a lot of shareholders and bylaws and organizational meetings, a lot more formalities, for something like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be anything like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or anything else like that, like really big corporations. It can also be just you yourself as a sole shareholder for it. A lot of times, people they'll say like, oh, what would you recommend for an accounting basis or something like that? And I'll often say, look, attorneys, if they're smart, they'll stay in their lane and not go into the accounting side, because that's got a lot of specific information and details and reporting that you really want to have someone that is a CPA or does accounting handle that stuff. Again, you want to know enough to ask questions and know kind of what's expected and what you'll need to file and keep oversight of that accountant. But if you don't have an accounting background, you don't have any strength in that area, certainly as part of your bench when you're looking at building up to ramp up your business and start your business, look for an attorney, accounting, someone to do that. If you're not really good with bookkeeping as well, maybe consider that. Sometimes accountants and bookkeepers, they're two different things, because the accountants only want to do like the taxes and the filings, and the bookkeepers are like the day-to-day doing the QuickBooks and things like that. If you're not comfortable with that, again, you want someone with insurance, especially if you're looking to open up a storefront. Get things like general liability, property insurance, business interruption, things like that to kind of protect you and your business in case something does happen, and things like that. Yeah, corporations, they're just very formal. Anything that has to do with a filing with the Illinois Secretary of State, whether it's an LLC or a corporation or something like that, there's annual renewal paperwork that needs to be done. Effectively, all it's saying is, do you want to keep being a company? Do you want to keep staying active? And so, if anyone's kind of looked through the Illinois Secretary of State business website, you can actually kind of search for just random names. Like you can do that if you just go down the street and you're looking for, John's Flower Shop. See, usually if you just type in the search box John's Flower Shop, it'll come up like John's Flower Shop LLC or something. You'll see a little note in there that says whether it's active or dissolved or inactive or something like that. Usually that means that filing fees for annual dues aren't paid. And so that's something that you need to do, because if you don't maintain the company and file the correct paperwork with the Illinois Secretary of State or whatever state you're incorporated at or doing business in, it can mean that if you do get sued, it cuts that limited liability protection and that limited liability veil, so that you don't have that shield anymore. And now you potentially could get personal assets hit. And so that's the whole point, that you're going through this paperwork, that you're paying the filing fees to the state and doing all this stuff, is so that you have, again, the biggest thing, limited liability protection, so that your personal assets don't get hit if your business suffers. Limited liability company, that's a little more flexible than a corporation in terms of reporting requirements and when you file reports and other things like that. This one, it's a little bit, I like to, when I say members and managers, depending on what you want to get out of the business, or depending on who's got the authority, you can often have someone where, like, a manager is the one that just runs the day-to-day operations and has all the authority, and then the members kind of just, they go along with whatever the manager says. So if that's the agreement that you have with your partners, that the members kind of just put in some money and they sit back and relax, but the manager is the one that has all the authority and has decision-making authority and runs the shop day to day kind of thing, that may be the way to do it. Or you could have where it's, everyone needs to have equal say-so on it, where you have a member management LLC where everyone's name is on these documents, everyone's name needs to be on bank accounts, everyone has equal authority up to a certain level or something like that. So that one, again, is a little more flexible in terms of paperwork, when it's filed, when it's done, and it's not as tight as a corporation is, and not potentially liable for securities laws and things like that as shareholders in a corporation might be. So I have a little breakdown of S Corp and LLC, because those are usually the big ones that people look at and what they consider, and as kind of like the defaults if you're looking in business. Again, they both give you that limited liability protection, which is the most important thing. The LLC, which is nice, you can file for tax-wise, you can have what's called an S Corp election. You can either do a default, where it's just taken as you're not, speak with your attorney at the end of the, or speak with your accountant at the end of the day is what you want. But you can have that default election where it's just the IRS doesn't really consider you as a major business. You're just running, a soap shop out of your house or something like that. And so you can file taxes for any money that's been made in the company on your personal return. Just do a Schedule C. And it kind of filters through that. And that's one way to do it, especially when you're starting out. And that gives you that ability with the LLC, where you're just the default taxation. Or you can also do an S Corp election, where you actually get treated as if you were an S Corp, but you got all the flexibility of an LLC. And again, that's something that you want to talk with your accountant ahead of time. A lot of times I like to just say, like, look, let's all get on a call together, where it's the accountant and the attorney and the person, so that you kind of have everyone working together to fill out this paperwork and kind of counsel you on what's best for your situation, your business, and for you personally as well, depending on the number of assets that you're committing to the business, number of assets do you have personally, things like that. Best practices on this, again, biggest thing, limited liability protection, right? In order to maintain that, you want to make sure that you have certain formalities in place so that it protects that. Because if you start taking money from your business account to pay your personal home mortgage, that's going to be an issue. Someone's going to say, look, you need to keep these buckets clean and dry and separated. Otherwise, if you're mixing them all together, the shield goes away. Now you're just putting everything into one bucket of money. And so technically we're suing the company because my client fell at your shop, but I get to go after your personal house too, because you were using money from the business to pay your personal mortgage. So why can't I? Everything's mixed together, right? So you want to keep things separate. But like I mentioned, you got corporate formation documents, things that you need to do annually to maintain. You got your record book to show, hey, this is my business. This is done right. Everything's on here. As you can see, it's legitimate, right? All contracts, accounts, I always say keep them in the full legal name of the company. If you're going through the effort to have an attorney and go through Secretary of State or whatever it is to incorporate and create that legal entity for your business, that's the new name that you're going under. So like bank accounts should have that name on the top left. Anytime you sign a contract, it's best to do it underneath that name, because then if, let's say, a lease goes south and just things don't work out, and that's fine. That's going to happen. They have a phrase like with the Silicon Valley people, is like fail fast, right? If you're going to fail fast. Don't make it a huge risk so that you're losing tons of money and time. But figure out what went wrong and then kind of repackage it and start again. And that's like your learning experience. That's your education, right? And so when you do that kind of stuff, though, it's ideal if you're going to take a hit, that the business takes a hit so that it doesn't impact, again, your personal assets. Sometimes when you're starting out, though, don't be surprised. Banks understand that. People know that. And so that's a lot of times why landlords or banks will say, okay, that's great. We'll do it underneath your company's name, but we want a personal guarantee too. And that's why, because they know, hey, you set up an LLC, anyone, can do that overnight that knows what they're doing. But then I don't want to chase the LLC. I want to chase after you because you've got the money in your pocket, and I want you to have that skin in the game. So you can't just close up shop and then I'm chasing after you. So don't be surprised if there is that personal guarantee. That doesn't remove any of that limited liability protection that I've been talking about when you set up the company for your personal assets. It's just an extra contractual ability for the person, the creditor that you owe money to potentially come after your funds if you don't pay the bill, or if you break the lease, or if you do something else like that. So always shoot for going for the company, but personal guarantee, don't be surprised. That's perfectly fine. But again, like anything else, just make sure that you keep things on track, you keep this above board, and that you don't bite off more than you can chew at the end of the day. Written agreements, you've heard this all the time, always have it in writing. Oral agreements, technically, you can still enforce. There's nothing wrong with that. They have a shorter statute of limitations for when you can enforce them. As 5 years versus 10 years for a written one. But it's the best source if you have it written down, and especially if you have things like employment handbooks or non-compete agreements or things like that, where if you provide them to someone else, have them sign off, hey, I received this, so that if you do have an issue down the road, they already acknowledge that they received the thing, so they can't put their head in the sand and pretend like they never knew that. I never knew I wasn't supposed to drive the company truck. It's like, John, it says it right here in the book. You're not allowed to drive the company truck, because you had 18 DUIs or something, so it's kind of, you want to use that as a risk mitigation factor on those documents. And that's why you want to work closely with an attorney or professional that does that kind of stuff. And you want to have that relationship with them so that you can, ask them, hey, what's my risk here? Like I'm going to have a company truck now. Risk just went up a lot higher than if you had only a storefront, right? Because now if you're going out on deliveries, if you hire drivers, if something happens on the road, that expands your potential risk pool compared to if you just kept everything consolidated to that one shop where you just have to worry about snow and ice, or people falling inside, or something happening where something falls on an employee or on you or something else like that. So those are kinds of things you look at. Vendor contracts, again, it's really important if you're working with other people. If you're running a restaurant, you want to have those contracts in place that you're going to have the supplier that's going to give you the syrup for the Coke, or bringing over the cheese or whatever it is, and what time that's going to happen. A lot of times these vendors, they want to lock you in with the contracts because they want to be their exclusive provider, like different distributors for alcohol and stuff like that. They only want you to use them and not their competitor. And so it's really important when you get those contracts, when you get anything in writing, for the same reason you want it in writing, you make sure you look that over, you read it, and that you understand what's in there and what that means. Because if you go with one distributor for beer products, you're not going to be able to order from someone else if it says exclusively on that contract you can only order from us. They find out there's enforcement mechanisms in there, so it might limit the types of products that you can sell in your business. Maybe that's an issue, maybe it's not, but that's a conversation that you need to have ahead of time with your vendors, and that's why you need to know what your business is and just read the contract, because you can always change things. Sometimes there's more leverage than not to change things depending on how bad you need that vendor. If you've got 5 distributors in the area and they got different products, it's pretty fluid on what you can do and what you can ask for, because you just say, all right, well, if I don't get it with you, I'll get it with the next guy, right? But if there's only one person that distributes, sometimes you see that with Comcast, like Comcast, AT&T, all this stuff, where it's like you move into a building and the landlord already signed a contract that said only AT&T. So now all the tenants can only go through AT&T for their internet, right? And it's just the power that you have. You're kind of forced into that one provider. All of a sudden, their leverage goes up, and that's a big difference. So be careful with that stuff. Insurance, again, I used to be an insurance adjuster. It's kind of like so I've seen on the claim side handling these things too, and what have you. But at the end of the day, insurance, all it is you're paying a premium to kind of shift the risk, right? Because you're saying I can't afford, if something this bad happens, to pay it out of my pocket. People don't get insurance on their Huffies, right? On a bicycle. You're not going to go get insurance on your kid's bicycle by itself, because you know what? Actually, I haven't bought a bike in a while, so I don't even know what the pricing is. Back when I was growing up, about $150, you get a nice bike. I think nowadays, I don't even want to venture to guess what it is. Most of my kids, I go to Working Bikes down on Western and get one. But great people over there, by the way. If anyone was by like Western and 25th, Working Bikes is fantastic. Trevor and everyone over there, just putting a plug for them. They do great work. But you don't get insurance for that because you're not really going to pay anything for it. Sometimes when you go like buy a product or something at Walmart or an electronics store or something, they try and sell you like those warranties where it's like, hey, pay an extra $10 to cover this $20 item and it'll be replaced in 2 years. Most people skip on that because it's like it's a $20 item. If it breaks, whatever, it's not the end of the world. I can cover that, right? Insurance is something bigger. So if you got a storefront, what happens if there's if you buy a property, what happens if there's a fire? Most people aren't going to be able to cover the full cost of removing the debris and knocking that thing down and building up a brand new place, right? And so that's what you're pushing. It's a risk mitigation avoidance tool. At the end of the day, you're paying that premium so that the chance that something bad happens passes on to someone else, and they have a contract that says, if this happens, I'll cover you for it. And that's why it's important to work with a good insurance agent to kind of figure out what are your risks. If you do a lot of work online, cyber liability might be one of those things where it's kind of like, all right, what happens if someone does, if you work with a lot of, personal information like social security numbers, bank accounts, checking, things like that, financial accounts, what happens if some bad actor comes in and takes that information? Cyber liability, you're looking at an insurance company to come in, notify all the customers, cover any potential claims they may have, provide identity protections, identity theft protection. stuff like that that you wouldn't be able to offer. And especially if you're working online, depending on where it is, especially if it's Europe now, if you do any sales in Europe or things like that, there's a lot of restrictions on what information you can secure from people and privacy and things like that too. So that's something else that you want to look at, right? And that's something where an attorney and insurance person are probably going to be able to say, hey, this is something you might want to look at because of what your business is. Work comp, if you get one employee, automatically you got to get work comp. And work comp, you know, the rates that they're charged are different depending on what the classification of the job is and what the duties of that job is, which again is why it's important to have those job roles and descriptions of what the duties are and what's required of that person, not just from an employment side and protecting against those risks, but also on work comp, they're going to want to know, what does this person do? Someone that's sitting at a desk typing up, you know, biggest risk to them is probably, you know, later down the road, carpal tunnel kind of claims or wrist injury claims versus someone that's working in a, you know, in a giant factory with huge metal stamping machines. There's a lot different risk there. And so, you know, if you're working 90% of the time as in clerical and then 10% of the time doing metal stamping, work comp's going to charge you at that 10%, that higher rate for the whole job. They don't do like they break it down, but it's really important. I often tell people, you know, work comp, sometimes people think like they can get away. Oh, I only got one employee or I got two employees or something else like that. And it's like, and the employees are, you know, your family or your really good friends. And so it's like, well, even if they get hurt on the job, they'll say they got hurt on the street somewhere else. They didn't get hurt over here, or they got hurt crossing railroad tracks or at their house or something else like that. It's not often the you know, the friend or the cousin that gets hurt working for you that, you know, is making a direct claim. Usually it's they go to the hospital because they were hurt, and then all of a sudden their insurance company says, where were you hurt or how were you hurt? And they get that information and they realize it was at your work, you know, and then they start digging in and saying, hey, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we paid $5,000 to fix this guy's broken arm. We want our money back because it wasn't our fault. It was, you know, you guys didn't secure a ledge or something like that, or some item, and that's what hurt this person. So it was your fault. And so Blue Cross Blue Shield then all of a sudden is looking for you, and then you get found out, you know, with the Illinois Work Comp Commission and what have you, and you know, you're off to the races in terms of you know, trying to recover from that and doing things there. So it's really important to kind of protect yourself in that environment, and for those reasons, sometimes people don't think they got risk, but you know, it's not just from the people, you know, it's also third parties and people outside that as well that you got to be careful for. Trademarks are a great one. If you've really got a really important trademark like Augie's Baskets, like everyone loves the name Augie. I'm known well in the community. People are going to buy this. They're going to believe it's such high quality right away. I don't want anyone else using the name Augie anywhere, because then they're going to trade off of my goodwill and that everyone loves me. You know, so a trademark, that's what it means by the goodwill. You're kind of protecting that logo or that name, whatever it might be, from other people using it and causing confusion in the marketplace is often the term that you'll hear in that circumstance. And you know, trademarks are allowed. You can do it if you're just in Illinois. You can go through a Secretary of State there, and there's a form where kind of you're only protected in Illinois. If you want to do anything with the USPTO, which is the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and you know, get the little R on there that you see after names and things like that, or logos, that one requires some kind of commercial presence. And for commercial goes like a constitutional definition, which is across state lines. So if you're only selling in Illinois and you've only using your logo and doing advertisements and putting on your product for, oh, let's see, my apologies, getting a little bit of the glare. There we go, fixed it. But if you're not doing that across state lines, you're not going to be eligible to file a trademark with the USPTO. So it needs to be across state lines. You need to show evidence as exhibits of, you know, sales receipts or things like that are across state lines, so that you can file for that. And again, it's kind of like a race to, you know, who trademarks first. So if you've got some competitor that's trying to beat you to it, it is a little bit of a race, but it's also who's using it in the market. It needs to be, you can't just squat on a trademark, right? You can have a filing basis for in use or intent to use. And so you have a little bit of wiggle room on the intent to use. That's like you're creating your company, you're going to use this name, but you haven't made any products yet or sold it, so you're planning on doing it. So you start to put it on there so that people are aware in the world that you're thinking about using this thing. So kind of stay away from it because they don't want any trouble. But really the big thing that's important on the trademark is actually using that thing in commercial use. You can't just trademark something and then just let it sit there without use for like 10 years because you're trying to gate it from someone else from using it. That's not the way it works. You need to have continual market use and market presence for that. Trademarks, they're not super expensive, but it's like $250 a class, which is a filing fee depending on what you're using it for. Classes are like the type of good or service that you're using it for. So like like a whiskey or something, I think it's like class 33, or brown liquors and things like that. So you might use Augie brand whiskey is different than Augie brand clothing. So someone could still use Augie clothing because it's so much different than whiskey. No one's ever going to confuse the two. And so it just depends on what the class of good is or service. Restrictive covenants, but the trademark or the patent, that's when you start getting attorney billing and things like that. That's the kind of trade-off that you need to look at, because those take time and effort to produce and create, and also to file everything correctly so that it's done the right way. And so that's the time intensive. That's where the fees kind of come in. And again, talk with whatever professional you're looking for in that area. Restrictive covenants, those kinds of things are helpful when you're working with vendors or suppliers, where it's just look, I'm going to use you exclusively. Maybe I want a discount on the price per unit because I'm using you exclusively, and so let's move forward with this. And you're not going to be able to use anyone else. I'm going to sell my products to you specifically, and you agree to that. Non-disclosure, that's a great thing if you've got like special, if you got a restaurant with special recipes or things like that you don't want people getting out because you're afraid they're going to use that as a competition. Sometimes it just depends. There's a lot of restrictions on how you can restrict people, because by and large, as a society, we don't want to keep people from being able to find work or do work or things like that. But if the Coca-Cola recipe, they can give you an NDA so that you can't go sell that to Pepsi somewhere else. Great. Wrapping up, City of Chicago, if you're looking for a business license, one of the most important things too, I'll give you, can't say enough good things about the BACP and everything they do. Oh, and by the way, happy Small Business Development Center Day today. Small Business Development Centers too, they're great resource. They're like the boots on the ground for these kind of programs. They offer a lot of great things like business counseling. They offer sometimes legal help desks as well, where you kind of have these one-on-ones with an attorney. I've done a few of those as well. They have a lot of great resources. They have a lot of computer programs or databases so that you can get client lists, so that you don't have to pay some marketing company X amount of dollars per name in order to send out mailers, if that's what you're looking for, kind of stuff. WBDC, love them as well. Women's Business Development Center, great resource. Maura over there is doing great things, and they do a lot of great information as well. I even tell people, here's a great resource. Your local library, you got business librarians over there. There's a lot of great information, a lot of free programs, a lot of access to items and information that can really help you out with your business as well. So don't be afraid to take advantage of those resources, especially when you're starting out, and especially when you're going forward as well, in order to maintain that stuff and get that information and be able to get as much as you can for free instead of paying someone else to do it. Because again, money's tight when you're starting out. Great. Again, business license, whether you're in the city of Chicago, if you're in the suburbs, different villages, they require licenses for different things depending on what your level of the business is. If you're operating a coffee roastery or a restaurant or something else like that, you're going to have some higher scrutiny things because it's health related, or fire risks or things like that. And so you may have some additional kind of hoops that you need to jump through. But reach out to City of Chicago. They're a great resource to reach out and speak with the BACP and just say like, hey, what's the process? What do you need from me? If you're in a suburb or another municipality or Forest Park or something else, I do a lot of stuff over there. It's just kind of reach out to their village government and just go with their community development and see what you need to do. And typically, I found that people that work in those areas, they're really open, they're really free with the information and kind of giving you a heads up and a roadmap on what they're looking for and what they need in order for you to get a license and be successful and continue operations in that town. So thank you very much. My information is there in case anyone wanted to reach out directly for any kind of one-on-one or information. I think Geraldine, if it's okay with you, can go to Q&A and just
Yes,
start.
definitely. Thank you
Awesome.
for a great presentation. Let's see if anyone has any questions, could I please put them in the chat? Um, can you do a DBA with a previously established LLC instead of starting a new entity if offering similar yet expanded services?
Yeah, you can really do anything. It's just a question of what hoops you need to go through or what you need to do in order to provide that. If you did an LLC, and I keep using Augie's baskets for some reason, and I should have like a basket with me that I just bring around to all these things. But if I got Augie's Baskets LLC and I just decided to wind it down because I didn't want to pay the fees or there was no reason for it, I wasn't making sufficient sales, and so it's just really like a little tchotchke thing that I do for friends and families for a few dollars on the side. You would essentially close down the LLC, wind that up, dissolve it, and then you can file for a DBA and just do it as a sole prop. Or if you have an LLC that's some weird name that you decided to use, and then you have like different brands that you're using, like Augie's Baskets, then I got Augie's Socks or things like that you want to use underneath that name, that main company, you can always do a DBA offshoot for that too. DBA is just telling the world, here I am. So if something goes wrong, they know where to contact and who to sue, who to come after for it. But yeah, great question.
Great. Can you change from an LLC to an LLP?
Again, typically you can. It's going to be some paperwork. It's going to be some filings. The biggest thing when you change from those different entities, depending on what specific reason you have, are really tax consequences, because you need to consider, is that going to trigger a sale for reporting purposes? And so that might mean taking stock of all the accounts and all the inventory and everything that you have and paying taxes on it, because it's effectively like you're closing on one to open down another one. And so what that impact might be on the company and on your finances. And that's a great question. First question to ask for an accountant about what would happen and what your impact's going to be, and decide, is it still worth it?
Great. How can you dissolve an LLC?
So it's a really simple process, giving away all my secrets. Oh no. But it's through the Illinois Secretary of State. So the same kind of entity, I'm assuming that you're incorporating or forming a company in Illinois. Every state got its own. It goes through the Illinois Secretary of State, that it goes through the Secretary of State for that state, my apology, for corporations, divisions, business division is typically what it's called. So there's an amendment for an article for dissolution is effectively what it is. And it's a really good thing to file that article dissolution and do it formally, because if you don't pay the annual renewals or things like that, it can get dissolved administratively, where typically the state of Illinois, they'll send you a letter that says, hey, you didn't pay the annual renewal. It looks like you don't want to keep being a company. We're going to dissolve this thing administratively in 30 days, and then they'll send you another letter, and then 6 days later, you'll see dissolved on the company. But it's a really good idea to do it yourself, and it's very cheap. It's like a few dollars. It's not a huge amount of money, but you're effectively saying, look, I'm winding down my operations. I don't want to be a business anymore. State of Illinois, I'm closing up shop. And then there's a few things that you want to do in terms of risk mitigation. Like you want to notify any potential creditors, you want to close lines of credit. If you have any open orders, you want to fulfill those or find either refund money or find someone else that can fulfill that order and pass them on there, knowingly. But it's good to have a date, because when you file that article of dissolution and it allows you to choose a specific date, you can say like December 31st. A hard date for when that dissolution is going to happen. So for tax filing purposes, you don't have any leeway where you have a couple days in January where all of a sudden you're gonna have to file taxes next year, even though you really didn't make money. And then also, in case anyone comes out of the work down the road and makes a claim against you, within whatever the statute of limitation is for that claim, you have that limited liability protection, because if you file it the right, if you dissolve it the right way, you have that protection still. And you say, look, that happened when I was running my company. I put it away the right way. You can't come after my personal assets. But if you leave it open-ended where the state of Illinois shuts down because you didn't pay the money for the annual renewal, technically that potentially leaves you open. And then there might be a claim a year down the road for a company that you no longer run that just went into the wastebasket. But they're going to say, hey, your product hurt me. Now I'm suing you. I get to I get to make a claim on your house now, or your personal bank account. So there's a lot of benefits to doing it the right way. And it's not super crazy.
Great, thank you. Where do I get trademarks for my name and logo?
So trademarks, the big difference is going to be that commercial use, whether you have across state lines. If you're only in Illinois and you're only selling services or goods in Illinois, then it's really, the state of Illinois Secretary of State is where you'd go for a trademark kind of thing on there. If you're looking for the bigger one where, you got like the little R after your name, that's typically what it means. That means it's federally protected so that no one in the US can use that name as well. You go to the USPTO, US Patent and Trademark Office. They've got a great website. They've got a lot of really great helpful information, kind of letting you know the basics of what trademark law is or what can be expected. And with trademarks, again, it's really important. It's trying to say like what's unique about the word you're using or the logo you're using or something else like that you want to protect, because you don't want some other person coming out of the woodwork and using that name and confusing the marketplace. That's really what's important. And so that's why Coca-Cola, the red, the script, they really want to protect that. And that's, worldwide, so that no one else can use a fake. Sometimes you see these stores where it's like they're doing some sketchy stuff where they're playing off the name and the logo and things like that, and they might get away with it because they're just setting up shop somewhere and somewhere, and Coca-Cola doesn't realize it. But as soon as you get a cease and desist, and it's like, hey, stop using our name, you're confusing people. They're thinking that you're buying Coca-Cola stuff when you're not, or you're ruining our reputation, kind of stuff. So short answer, USPTO is where you would go to do that trademark stuff. I will say, if you're thinking about a trademark or you're thinking about a name to use for your product or service ahead of time, just do a Google search, see if anyone else is using that name. If you try and do Honey Biscuit Country Kitchen or something like that, you might have Honey Biscuit Fried Chicken on Elston saying like, hold on a second, people think you use Honey Biscuit fried anything. It's related to us, so they're going to think it's because of our restaurant and everything that is associated with that. You can't play off us. You're trying to make money off our name, and so you're going to get a cease and desist letter from them, very likely. So I often say, before you put in the money to do that, some simple things that you can do yourself. Google it. Search the USPTO website. They have a great feature on there where you can check names and you can see if they're live or dead. Live are the ones you got to worry about. Dead are people that just said, I don't want that mark anymore. So it's open back to the market. And then also, if you really want to get deep into it, if it makes financial sense for you, they do have services where they do really in-depth kind of searches, and they send you back, a thick packet showing everyone that's got a similar name or a similar logo or products like across the nation. And so you can pay, those are a few $100s. They can get to a few $1,000s. It's just going to depend on what your risk tolerance is, and how important that mark or name is for your product.
Okay, great. Is it okay to start a sole proprietor form of business with liability insurance?
Yeah, a lot of people do it. Again, it just goes with that risk reward kind of mix, and what is appetizing for you and what's able for you. If you're just selling, bars of soap on an Etsy shop or something like that, there isn't going to be a lot of risk. Really, it's just going to be, if someone uses their product and it burns their skin or something else like that. But that's a very common way to do it. It's a great way to maintain lower costs, especially as you're just starting out, just to get a proof of concept to see if something's there. And then if it does take off, you can worry about forming, an LLC or a corp later on.
Okay, great. Do I need a license for consulting investment services?
Potentially. A lot of times for professional services, what they'll do is a kind of a cheaper license. It's really going to depend on what your service is, and just work with whatever your municipality is to kind of determine which license you'll need, what that cost will be. I know for like over here in Mount Prospect, for example, for the business license for attorney offices, we get a kind of a discounted rate because we're already paying for the professional license. And so they kind of make an exception for that and charge a lower rate than if you were to open up a restaurant, for example. And sometimes that also correlates to, and Geraldine, you probably have more information because you're working in an office, right?
Exactly. I was just going to say, for any business licensing questions, you can email bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org.
Awesome. There you go. You got the source right there.
Let's see. Are you mandated to issue stocks in an LLC business with a single owner?
No. Typically, what it'll be is on an LLC with you're the owner, so there's no one to fight with. So there's no, really at the end of the day with that. But what you'll do is typically have like units, interest in a company, and it's even if you only have a single owner, it's good to have like 100 units or 1,000 units, whatever you want it to be, just so that if you do sell off a piece in the future, you do bring on a partner or something else like that, you can divide whatever that ownership is and say like you get 500, 50% of the company is yours. And here's a kind of like a token unit, whatever that might be, just to delineate. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just have a specific, if there is a partner that comes in, it'll be an amended form where it's just a piece of paper that literally says ownership is whatever it is, 50% for each person, put their name, put their address, so that you specify who's got what authority. And then inside the operating agreement, it's going to say, what does that mean? So, what percentage of votes do you need in order to pass some kind of decision? That's where that becomes important. It's just in terms of what you're doing, who's got the power to do it, and what level does it take in order to make whatever that change is that you're proposing.
Great, thank you. Do I have to legally bind my business to a certain structure to obtain money of a venture capital and startup?
Not necessarily, but it's going to depend on the person that's got the money. A lot of times they'll want to, again, it kind of goes to that leverage item, which is, my apologies. It goes to that leverage item. If someone's bringing in all the money, they're going to want to do it the way they want to do it. And so they're going to set up a company where they're effectively the owner and you're kind of like an indentured service servant for them. So you got to be careful with that. So when you go into like venture capital or raising or things like that, you really have to know what's your worth. What do you bring to the table that they can't get from someone else? And how are you going to use that to create your own leverage to show them, I can return you X amount of dollars, as quickly as possible, kind of thing. So I'm worth something. So just don't try and steamroll me specifically.
Great. How do you protect yourself from the type of insurance liability that you mentioned if you hire 1099 employees as a part of a business model?
Yeah, that one's fun. It's at the end of the day, what I always say is for 1099, make sure you have a really good independent contractor agreement in place that specifically says, look, I'm hiring you as a 1099 employee. I'm going to pay you this. You're going to be responsible for taxes. You're going to be responsible for reporting. You bring your own tools. I'm just going to tell you what the job is. It's really important that you don't cross that independent contractor versus employee relationship. The Department of Labor, City of Chicago, you have a lot of great resources available to kind of delineate what the relationship is and what the difference is between a 1099, a true 1099 contractor versus an employee. A lot of times what that goes around if someone gets hurt is it's good to have that written contract and that written agreement that says I am a 1099 kind of thing is one example. But you also want to make sure that you're careful not to exert too much control over that person, because as soon as you start exerting control over the tools they use, the way they do a job, where they need to be, what hours they need to specifically work, what if they need to use like your company car or stuff like that. As soon as you start exerting more control, the more control that you exert, the more likely you are going to be found to be an employer, and it's going to be an employer-employee relationship, even if you had that agreement confirming 1099 contractor status. So just be careful with that. But that's a great place to start for that delineation.
Okay, great. How do S corps for professional services firm differ from professional corporation? Pros and cons?
It's just going to depend largely on if you've got partners, other people working with you. Also, in terms of your taxing and accounting and whatever is the most beneficial for you, depending on what level of funds that you're looking to get and the partners that you're looking to bring on. But that's certainly a conversation that's really specific, depending on the business you're in, the expected revenues, and the risks you have involved with that.
Great. S corps require corporate filings with every state that you have at least one client in? Question mark.
It kind of effectively what you're doing is you're kind of, if you're going for business outside of one specific state, you do open yourself to filings for those states. And also the other thing is you got to be concerned with potentially filing to do business in that state, which might typically with the Secretary of State, what that'll be is like a foreign entity is what it's called, because your headquarters might be in Illinois, but you might be doing a lot of work in Florida. So you'll be considered a foreign entity in Florida. You'll file with their, you'll be subject to any taxes and sales and what have you that's required to be collected for those transactions in Florida, for example. But the big thing is that the state, if you're doing business with their customers and you're making money from their customers and you get that benefit, the state wants to be able to have to protect its people, right? And so they want to be able to avail themselves in case they've been wronged. And so a lot of times what that'll mean is that's why you set up that foreign entity in Florida, so that if something happens with one of those Florida customers, they can send a notice to your registered agent. That's where the complaint goes. And so the other thing that you got to worry about is just you're availing yourself of the benefits of that state. You're also availing yourself of the risks associated with that state, and that you're effectively going to be drawn into court down there. Sometimes you'll see companies that, if you ever read like a credit card agreement or something like that, sometimes I'm a nerd. It's my job. So I do it all the time, but you'll see like choice of law or venue or stuff like that. That's what that's for, is kind of like trying to protect it. So you say, if anything ever happens and my products cause you to die, your family's going to have to sue me in Illinois or something else like that. Like you're specifically kind of saying you got to come to my turf in order to do something. So that's one way a contract could potentially protect you if you have tentacles in a lot of different places.
Great, thank you. Another question. For real estate investment properties, would it be advisable to establish one LLC for all properties? Or would it be more beneficial to create separate LLCs for each individual investment property?
Yeah, great question. I had multiple clients that do that kind of stuff. Typically, what they'll do is something called a series LLC, where you kind of have this main umbrella LLC company that is the granddaddy. And what that allows you to do is you get employer identification number for that. You're able to file taxes by putting everything into that bucket and filing underneath that name and that number and all that stuff. But you have the series, which are each of the individual addresses. And so what a lot of people do with that is they'll say the main company is Augie's Real Estate LLC, right? But then they'll do like 123 Main Street LLC, a series of Augie's Real Estate LLC kind of thing. And so they're long names, but they're like individual buckets. So it's a really great way, and I often recommend it because it limits your liability for each property, right? Because then if you've got 123 Main Street and 256 Sycamore Street, if someone falls on 256 Sycamore Street, they can't attach to 123 Main Street, and so it's a way to kind of cordon off and make those walls in between each property, because each property is going to be its own risk. And especially if you're a real estate investor and, if you're doing flips or stuff like that, but that's one thing. But, if you're doing something where it's a rental property as well, you might have some additional risk from the person actually renting it or something else like that happening there. So it's a great way. Series LLC is probably what you're looking for. And that's a great way to kind of give you liability protection, but also give you ease of maintenance for that main company.
Great, thank you. And we, just so everyone knows, we're trying to get to as many questions as we can. There is a ton coming in.
Cool.
Yeah, we're trying.
Thanks, everyone.
Is it wise to add a DBA to my already registered LLC if I'm providing the same yet expanded services? I think we kind of touch base something similar to that.
Yeah, not necessarily. Really, the DBA is if you've got like a completely different product or service that you want to associate a different name for. If you just got Augie's Baskets and you're okay with using Augie Baskets, but now you're selling socks, it's not a huge issue. You don't need to change the name or have a DBA or anything else like that. But if you do open up another storefront with a completely different name or something like that, you can just do a DBA, because again, all it is you're giving the world notice that if something happens or if you got an issue with this company or the store, you know who to contact, and that's a way to do that.
I think we have time for one more question. Our business is considering changing to a non-for-profit. We are unsure if we should start a new entity or switch to a nonprofit. What are the steps for a nonprofit? So kind of a twofold question there, two-part.
Yeah, so I know it's kind of like kicking a can, but it depends. Really, it goes to like my prior question and answer on the one about closing up, like I think it was an LLC and going with an LLP or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's what the tax consequences are, and because you're effectively selling one company and closing it down, and so you have to account for what that impact is on the accounting side. But the NFP, it's a great thing, depending on what your business, not necessarily your business, but what your purpose is in the company. Not for profit, you'd file with Secretary of State, same process, just a different form. With Illinois, again, I'm assuming everyone's just going to be Illinois because that's the market, right? But the other thing too is that you are able to get some tax benefits in terms of, like, if you want to go further with a 501c3. 501c3 is, there's a lot of different stuff. If you're like got a Chamber of Commerce, 501c6, so there's different ways. It's just that subchapter in the IRS code book, but you file those things separately. So one's a state requirement, one's a federal requirement, and so then it's just increased scrutiny as well, because if you've got different classifications and you got a 501c3, it's different filings, different scrutiny, because you're kind of protective of the money and being able to account for that and formalities and things like that. But it just depends on what you're looking to do, how you're looking to do it, and with who you're looking to do it with.
Okay, great. Last question that we have time for. Doesn't DBA require advertising before getting authorization for the name, or is that a corporation name?
Not necessarily, but it would be smart to do that, only because if you get any kind of conflict, or someone questioning like what your use for it is, it's always better to say, look, it's in use. I have active use of this item. That's why I'm looking to get a DBA. But it's not necessarily that it has to be in use at that time. It's not as restrictive as a trademark would be in terms of showing and exhibits that it is in use. But so that's kind of where it is over there. It'd be kind of weird to get a DBA for a name that you're not intending to use very, very quickly, or anytime in a short time span. But you know, you could, I guess, if you really want to stop, you know, Mario's lemonade stand from using your name or something down the street, but not really a great practice.
Great, thank you so much. That is all the time we have for questions today. Again, we want to thank all of our attendees for showing up to this great webinar. Augie, thank you as always for a great webinar. Again, the recording will be at www.youtube.com/Chicago BACP. And I did put it in the chat. Hoping everyone has a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.